Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the founding of Jin Let's Talk Lore series with episode 7, titled More Losses. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode, and be sure to stay tuned until the end of this episode for a brand new trivia question. Now last time we ended as the Qinliang Rebellion got underway with the nomads of the Northwest rising up against Jin oppression. And in their first exchange, the prefect of the Qin province, General Hu Lie, would die along with all his troops as their garrison at Gaoping would fall to the coalition led by the Tufa Xianbei tribe and their chieftain Tufa Shu Jinong. In response to this sudden uprising, the Jin court would send out the lieutenant of the Sili province in Shijian and General Tianzhang in an attempt to snuff out this rebellion in the bud before it causes more issues. Once out west, Shijian, whose new title would be General Who Brings Peace to the West, or Anxi Jiangjun, was more interested in playing political games than stopping the rebels, as along with his and Tianzhang's military appointment, Sima Yan also assigned official Du Yu to replace the deceased Hu Lie as the new prefect of the Qin province. Now Du Yu and Shijian did not like each other, as the two of them had repeatedly butted heads in their former positions. Prior to this western assignment, Shijian was in charge of the military garrisons within the capital province of Sili, while Du Yu was in charge of the civil affairs as the administrator of the capital commandery in Henan, as Du Yu favored more civil policies versus the hardline policies of Shijian. These two had long shared a past history of political differences and personal grudges. So now with Shijian being essentially Du Yu's new boss in this time of war, Shijian would take this opportunity to try to get Du Yu killed, as his first order of business was to command Du Yu to regroup Hu Lie's remaining garrison troops in the Qin province to launch a counterattack against the rebels. Given the disparity in troop count and morale at this point, as there were only 300 troops and barely 100 horses left in the Qin province garrison, this was clearly a suicide mission. So Du Yu simply refused on the ground that this would be a poor time to attack. Du Yu went on to write a report back to the imperial court detailing the needs for a more defensive and slow approach out west, as he suggested that next spring would be their best time to counterattack, as the enemy horses would be at their weakest after surviving through a long, tough winter. While this report would save Du Yu's life for now, soon after, Shijian would use the excuse that the city gate repairs done by Du Yu was too decorative and a waste of money to sanction him to the military court in hopes of killing him again. This time, Du Yu would end up being stripped of all his government posts and even lost his nobility title, but due to the fact that Du Yu was the imperial in-law with his wife being Princess Gao Lu, who was Sima Yi's daughter, and the aunt of the current emperor, the military court did not dare to execute him as Shijian had wanted. Either way, Du Yu would be recalled back to Luoyang to live for the time as just a commoner. Meanwhile, as Shijian was eager to prove Du Yu's report wrong, the Jin forces would rush the counterattack in fall of 270, while the rebel morale was still riding high off their initial victory. The result would be exactly as Du Yu had predicted, with Shijian's offensive failing to contain the rebellion. Conversely, Shijian's setback only ended up encouraging other oppressed nomadic tribes in the Liang province farther north to join in on Tufa Shu Jinong's coalition of rebels. Facing these new rebels in the Liang province, the local prefect Su Yu tried to use his garrison forces to quell the uprising, but the rebels eventually overwhelmed the local garrison forces, as Su Yu would also die in battle, as he would become the second Jin prefect to fall during the Qinliang Rebellion. By April 271, with the Jin forces now on the back foot following their failed attacks a few months back, the rebel coalition took the initiative, as this time they would target the stronghold at Jincheng in the Liang province, where the newly appointed prefect of the Liang province, Qian Hong, was holding court. Now, General Qian Hong was the son of General Qian Zhao, a renowned frontier Wei generals in the Northern Front, and like his father, Tianhong was by this time a military veteran who had participated in the conquest of Shuhan, serving under Deng Ai. After the founding of Jin, Tianhong was reassigned to the Yang province, but there he struggled to get along with General Chen Qian, who found Tianhong to be all bronze and no brain. So in order to keep the peace between two of his top generals, Emperor Sima Yan decided at the start of the Qianliang Rebellion to reassign Tianhong back out west as the new prefect of the Liang province after the death of Su Yu, in hopes that he can replicate the success of his father against the frontier nomads. Unfortunately, General Chen Qian's assessment would end up ringing true as Tianhong's hardline style of management failed to smooth out the local relationship with the Qiang and Di tribes, which triggered them to join forces with Tufa Shujineng's rebellion in late 270. This was particularly problematic as the Qiang forces made up a sizable portion of the local garrison. So by April of next year, when Tufa Shujineng and his growing band of rebels turned their eye on Jincheng, Tianhong found himself severely outnumbered. Seeing no hope of holding the city, Tianhong and his remaining troops attempted to make a run for it, as they opted to take the mountain path of the Qing Mountain in hopes of escaping the nomadic cavalry pursuit. However, with plenty of local Qiang and Di tribes helping out the rebel, Tianhong soon found himself surrounded and cut off in the Qing Mountain, with the rest of the Jin forces out west unable to challenge Tufa Shujineng's growing horde. Tianhong and his troops would slowly be starved out before getting annihilated as yet another Jin prefect and high-ranking general would fall at the hands of Tufa Shujineng. Following this disaster, General Shi Jian would be relieved of his command out west, as Sima Yan desperately looked for a general that could hopefully turn the tide out west, as the successes of Tufa Shujineng are only encouraging more and more oppressed tribes out west to join under his banner. Following the advice of his trusted imperial attendant Ren Kai, Sima Yan turned his eyes to Jia Chong. Now, at this time in 271, Jia Chong was the Grand General of the Cavalry, or Piaoqi Dajiangjun, which was a rather symbolic but highly prestigious position. More importantly, representing the group of initial supporters of Sima Zhao, Jia Chong had huge political influence in the imperial court, and he had no desire to become an actual military general again to risk his neck, especially given how poorly the situation out west was. So in order to dodge this appointment out west, Jia Chong offered his daughter to become Sima Yan's eldest surviving son and crown prince, Sima Zhong's wife. Well, you might think the wife of the crown prince would be a highly coveted position. This was simply not the case with Sima Zhong, as he was born mentally challenged. Already 13 years old, Sima Zhong still only had the intelligence of a young child, so naturally this worried Empress Sima Yan and the court quite a bit. Furthermore, Empress Yang Yan, who was Sima Zhong's birth mother, was even more concerned as she wanted to see her biological son become emperor one day. So when Jia Chong offered one of his daughters to Sima Zhong as a wife, Empress Yang Yan was ecstatic, as the support of the Jia clan would help immensely in securing Sima Zhong's chances to become the emperor one day. This was especially the case as Jia Chong had already married his eldest daughter Jia Bao to Sima Yan's younger brother, Sima You. And with growing voices from the court of how Sima You would make a better emperor than the mentally challenged crown prince, having Jia Chong switch sides now with a connection to Sima Zhong through this marriage would mean the world to the empress. So, with Empress Yang Yan strongly supporting the match, Sima Yan agreed as Sima Zhong would end up marrying Jia Chong's second daughter, Jia Nanfeng, in the year 272. Originally, Jia Chong had wanted to marry his youngest daughter, Jia Wu, to Sima Zhong, as they were around the same age. But given how Jia Wu still hadn't gone through puberty at the time, it was switched at the last moment to Jia Nanfeng, who was 2 years older than Sima Zhong, which puts her just at 15 at the time. And while this might seem like a very young marriage, even for the standards of the time, this was because it was a political marriage through and through, with Sima Yan and his empress hoping to gain support of the Jia clan into securing their son's future emperorship, while Jia Chong simply wanted to leverage his new position as the father-in-law to the crown prince to dodge the military assignment out west. In the end, both sides got what they wanted, but little did they know at the time that the choice of Sima Zhong and Jia Nanfeng would go on to doom the Jin dynasty, as they would be the direct cause of the Eight Princes conflict. Meanwhile, back out west, with Jia Chong avoiding the appointment, the task of stabilizing the region fell to Prince Sima Jun, who would come to become the Grand General who stabilizes the west. And under Sima Jun's more defensive approach, the rebellion would be relatively contained for the next 5 years between 272 and 277, when the Jin side basically gave up any attempts of recovering the lost territories and instead focused on restarting the Twintian farm system out west in hopes of creating a more solid foundation for a more aggressive military option in the future. And to find out when and how the Qinliang Rebellion would finally end, come back at the same time tomorrow for our series finale. Hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!